Hi, welcome back to my channel, or a very warm welcome if you're new here. My name is Sophie, and in today's video I'm going to be wrapping up my 4-part bookshelf tour. I've been doing an in-depth bookshelf tour where I've been putting out every book on the shelves behind me. There are 3 other parts in this series, so do check them out if you've missed them. I will link the full playlist below, but you don't need to have seen the other 3 parts to enjoy this part of the tour. So for the 4th and final part of this tour, I will be going through bookcase number 4, which is this one here. And this contains a lot of literary fiction. I do also have some Asian-inspired fantasy, some thrillers, and some classics, also some more translated fiction. This bookcase also features some of my favourite author showcase shelves, so shelves that are dedicated to some of my favourite authors. So without further ado, let's get going with the final part of this bookshelf tour. So the majority of books on this shelf are my literary fiction hardbacks. I also have these Grey's Anatomy pop vinyls here. So we have Miranda Bailey, Christina Yang, Meredith Grey, and Derek Shepherd, and Grey's Anatomy is one of my favourite TV shows. So up first we have The Dog of the North by Elizabeth Mackenzie, and this was shortlisted for the Women's Prize for Fiction. So actually quite a lot of these books on here are related to the Women's Prize for Fiction. Then we have The Museum of Extraordinary Things by Alice Hoffman. So Alice Hoffman is one of my favourite authors, and this is one of her books that I have yet to read. Then we have The Heavens by Sandra Newman. So I did read this one and it was quite confusing. I got very confused about what was going on in the plot. I think this one potentially will get unhauled. Then we have The Safekeep by Yael van der Wouden, and this was actually the winner for the Women's Prize for Fiction in 2025. So I went to a live event in London and I listened to shortlist readings from all of the shortlisted authors for the Women's Prize for Fiction and the Women's Prize for Non-Fiction. And that's an annual event, which I'm going to this year as well. So I actually met all the shortlisted authors and did get my book signed. So this one is also signed and personalised. And I would highly recommend this if you want a literary fiction read. Yael did such an amazing job at writing suspense, and her writing style is really good. And I think this was her debut novel. And it also tells the story of something that happened to the Jewish community in the Netherlands after the Second World War. And yeah, this one definitely deserved to win the prize. Then we have The Memory of Animals by Claire Fuller. So there is another book by this author somewhere on the shelf. I don't think it's on this one, but she was also shortlisted one year for the Women's Prize for Fiction, and I enjoyed that book, so I picked this one up. Then we have Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus, and this was a really good read. I really enjoyed this. As you can see, I heavily tabbed this, and this is also the Waterstones special edition with the periodic table on the sprayed edges. Then we have this beautiful special edition of The Marriage Portrait by Maggie O'Farrell. So I love this cover, I love the colours, and this purple and gold is beautiful. And this again was a shortlisted book for the Women's Prize for Fiction, and I did really enjoy this. It's set in Florence. Then we have Fire Rush by Jacqueline Crooks, and this was quite lyrical, and the author put a lot of music in there, and some of the writing felt very much like music, and yeah, it was a really good one. And I did also get this one personalised. Then we have The Exhibitionist by Charlotte Mendelssohn, and this one was quite a weird read. I'm not sure if I'm going to end up keeping it, but pretty much most of the characters were really unlikable, but this is a beautiful special edition from Waterstones. Then we have Pod by Lelaine Paul. So this is from author of The Bees, which I mentioned previously that I really enjoyed and was really weird and wonderful. And this one is told from the perspective of a dolphin. I think it's a spinner dolphin. Yeah, a spinner dolphin. And it told us a lot about the environment and how humans are impacting the environment and also the life of these dolphins. So again, quite a strange one as it's from an animal's perspective, but it was really well done. And I also got this one signed. Then we have People Person by Candice Carty-Williams, and she is best-selling author of Queenie, which I read and did really enjoy. I haven't read this one yet, but this is again a special edition. Then we have The Bandit Queens by Parini Shroff, and this one was longlisted for the Women's Prize for Fiction, and I've yet to read it, but it sounds really good. Then we have some books from one of my favourite authors who I used to read a lot of her books and love her writing so much, and this is Jodi Picoult, and this is Wish You Were Here. And yeah, I've read this one and it's set in pandemic times and it was quite an interesting story, so I would definitely recommend this one. Then a couple of her books that I haven't read. So we have The Book of Two Ways, and we have Mad Honey, which is a collaboration between Jodi Picoult and Jennifer Finney Boylan. And this actually isn't all of my Jodi Picoult collection. We do have another couple coming up here, but I do have a lot of paperbacks which are on a different shelf, which I'm not able to access at the moment. So as soon as I can, I will do a tour of those as well. And then we have The Maid by Nita Prose, which I really need to read. I've had this sitting on the shelves for a long time now. And it's this beautiful special edition. And then we have Ghostly, which is introduced and illustrated by Audrey Niffenegger, author of The Time Traveller's Wife, and this is a collection of ghost stories, which I have had also for a very long time, and this, I really need to read this soon. I've been really excited about reading it, but never seemed to get around to it, and I love this beautiful cover. Then we have 14 Days, which is a collaborative novel, and this is edited by Margaret Atwood and Douglas Preston. And basically each section is written by a different author and you don't know who wrote it, I don't think. I think it must say somewhere, but when you're reading it, you don't know who's written it. And it's just a collaborative writing experiment. And this is set in an apartment block in pandemic times, and each section is from a different apartment, from a different person's perspective. And I've been meaning to read this for a while. So yeah, here's all of the different authors that have written a section. So Margaret Atwood, Sylvia Day, and we also have R.L. Stein, who's written a section, which is very interesting. And then we have The Embroidered Book by Kate Hartfield, and this is a kind of fantasy Marie Antoinette retelling. I love Marie Antoinette, but yeah, I need to read this one. This is just a blue sprayed edge edition. And then we have The Persians by Sana Mauludi, and this was a shortlisted book for the Women's Prize in 2025, and this is actually the only one of the shortlisted books I haven't read yet. But again, I did get this one personalised and signed. Then another couple of Jodi Picoult books. So this one is Off the Page, and this was actually written with her daughter Samantha Van Leer. And this is the second book in a kind of children's young adult story, which they've written together. I read the first one, but I need to read this one. And then we have Jodi Picoult's latest book, which is By Any Other Name. And I went to a talk that she was giving in London, I think it was last year now. And yeah, it was really interesting. And this book is based on the assumption that William Shakespeare did not actually write his plays and they were written by a woman. And Jodi Picoult did a lot of research and she gave some very compelling evidence as to why the man we think as Shakespeare couldn't have written all of these plays. So yeah, I guess that's up for debate. But yeah, I need to read this one. Then we have Wild and Wicked Things by Francesca May. I think this is set in either 1920s or 1930s. This is a black sprayed edition. Then we have another book by Maggie O'Farrell, and this is Hamnet, and this has recently been turned into a film, which I need to see. And this won the Women's Prize in 2020. and this was such a beautiful book. I had a really good time reading this. Most of the book is very sad, but Maggie O'Farrell is such a brilliant writer. Her skills really shine through in this book, so I would recommend picking this one up. And I also did get this one signed. And then we have 2 books by the author Anna Mazzillo, and this is The Clockwork Girl. And I'm not going to lie, I did mainly buy this because the cover and those edges were beautiful, but the story did sound really interesting as well. And then there's also another book by her, which is called The House of Whispers, and this one has piano keys as the sprayed edges, which I absolutely love. So yeah, they're 2 books that I need to read, and they've actually been on the shelves for quite a while now, so it's time to get them to them very soon. Then we have Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin, and I think this one is about gamers, and there's some kind of tragedy and also a relationship, and there was quite a lot of hype about this, and I've heard some very good things, but I'm yet to read it. Then we have another edition of The Marriage Portrait, and this is the exclusive Waterstones edition by Maggie O'Farrell, and this one has some beautiful artwork and some cover detail. But I do really prefer the purple edition, and if I'd have known that they were going to do this purple edition, then I probably wouldn't have got this one, but I did get this one signed by Maggie O'Farrell and personalised. And then we have Good Girl by Aria Arba, and this was shortlisted for the Women's Prize last year. So yeah, that's a lot of my literary fiction books, and I haven't always been a fan of literary fiction. It has taken me a little bit of time to find the right books and get into it, but there are some really brilliant books that I have discovered through the Women's Prize for Fiction. So I would recommend, if you're wanting to get into literary fiction, especially literary fiction written by women, then I would definitely check out the prize. And then let's move down to the next shelf, and on this shelf I have the bulk of my classics. So I have some Clothbounds and then paperbacks. So I do have this little artist's hand. I thought that was really cool. And then I have the Romeo and Juliet from the movie Pop Vinyls. And then I've got this little tin here which came with a book subscription, and I think you're supposed to put your kind of TBR in here, so I might give that a go. And then I will just show you these couple of books which are hanging off. So I do really have a problem, I can't fit all of my books on the bookshelf, so I am going to have to unhaul some books, but I think I'll also have to do a very big reorganisation at some point. So firstly we have this little duology here, and this is The Cat Who Saved Books by Sosuke Natsukawa, and this is the first book, and then there was another book which they released recently, and this is The Cat Who Saved the Library, and this has some beautiful sprayed edges. So this is just kind of the usual Japanese cat book. There's quite a few of them coming up on the next few shelves, so you'll see my collection a bit more. And then we have Jamaica Inn by Daphne du Maurier. So I've read Rebecca and love Rebecca, and I found this edition in a second-hand shop last year, so I am eager to read this one as well. And then we have Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy, and this is the Constant Garnett translation, and I did actually start reading this but didn't gel with it, so I do have the other translation now. And this, I don't really want to part with this edition though, because it's a lovely floppy paperback and is part of the Modern Library Classics, so I will probably still keep this one, and maybe I will read this translation again after I've read it in the different translation first. So that different translation is this one here, and this is the Oxford World Classics edition, and apparently this is the best translated version. I did some research into which one, and this is translated by Louise and Alma Maud, and I believe this is the same translation as my Folio Society edition, so I really do need to get on with this. I started this a long time ago now and need to pick it back up because I was really enjoying it, and I'd love to get this knocked off my TBR, and would also love to read War and Peace by Tolstoy. Okay, so then this little section here is my Penguin Clothbound classics. I do have some more further down in collected book sets, but these are the individual ones, and I do love these, but they are really liable to fade, so a lot of the text is already fading on these, and they've only been sitting on the shelf. So I think they're beautiful, but I'm not sure if they're that sustainable. So we have a couple of Austen here. So we've got Persuasion by Jane Austen, which I've read. We have Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. And I've also just noticed that these are not in any particular order. So this one should be by those. So this is Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. So I don't think I've read that one. So I'm not really a huge Austen fan. I do prefer kind of the darker classics, so the Brontes and the Gothic classics, rather than Jane Austen, but I think I do need to read them again, and I need to complete the set of the Jane Austen ones here. And I think I do really need to try and read Northanger Abbey, and I've heard some really great things about that, so I'm eager to pick that one up. And then we have Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. So I've read this one. I did enjoy it. It is quite hard going because it's just written in stream of consciousness, which could put some readers off. Then we have Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. I have read this. Then we have A Christmas Carol and Other Christmas Writings by Charles Dickens. This was actually my first clothbound classic. And then the tome that is War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy, and I'm very intimidated by this, but I have actually heard people say that it is actually quite easy to read. So I think I really need to just not worry so much about the fear and just get it read. I should actually have the Oxford Classics version as well, but I'm not sure where that went, but maybe it's lower down the shelf and we'll find it. Unfortunately, this shelf is the one that is most disordered, I think. And then we have 1984 by George Orwell, and this is really a staple if you're into dystopia. And what Penguin actually did do, they did start to do these little paper binds, because previously they had stickers on the back which ruined the clothbound classics, so they have listened and done this, which I think is a lot better. But yeah, as I say, I'm not sure if I'm going to keep collecting these because they're just so fragile, but they are beautiful. I would love to have loads of shelves of all of them, but yeah, I'm not sure if I will collect them. And then we have Orlando by Virginia Woolf, and I need to read this one. It sounds so good. And yeah, that should probably be with that one as well. And then I've got, this isn't a classic, but this is a vintage classic edition of The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. And yeah, this is one of my favourite books and I love this edition, so I wanted to add it to the collection. And then we have Carmilla by Sheridan Le Fanu, and this is a great vampire story and I love this Pushkin Press edition. Then another Daphne du Maurier, and this is My Cousin Rachel, and I haven't read this, I need to read this, but I do love these editions, so I think this is, again, is it a vintage edition? Let me just check. No, it's a Virago Modern Classics edition, and I think you can get the other ones in these editions, and yeah, I think I might get the others to match this. And then a paperback copy of Dracula, which is a vintage edition, and yeah, I think I do like the red spines. And then Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. This is one of my favourite classics and I would love to reread this soon. Then we have The Castle of Otranto by Horace Walpole. So I got this when I went to Strawberry Hill House, which is where Horace Walpole lived. And yeah, I wanted to read this in spooky season, but I didn't get around to it. And then we have The Egyptian Book of the Dead. So I actually picked this up from TK Maxx. I found it and I thought it looked really intriguing. And yeah, it's actually a really old book, which was translated into English. And yeah, it's a classic. And I think it goes into a lot more detail about how the Egyptians thought about death and their approaches to burying the dead. And yeah, I'm really interested to read this one. Then we have a little mix of the Oxford classics and also the Penguin ones. So we have Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux. So I did buy this one because this was recommended as a good translation. So it's translated by David Coward. Then we have Notre-Dame de Paris by Victor Hugo. So I planned to read this on a visit to Paris last year, but again, I didn't get around to it. Then we have The Complete Poems by Emily Bronte, which I'm really interested to read. Then we have The Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer, which actually isn't my book, it is my husband's, so he's very interested in history, so it is his book. I still want to read it though, it sounds really interesting. And I didn't study literature, so I would love to really do kind of a self-study and look at classics and older texts as well to see how that's transformed into the modern novel. So hopefully one day I will do that and I will read this as part of that. Then we have On the Origin of Species by Charles Darwin. So I picked this up when I visited his house in Kent. And actually I do really like to kind of pick up books when I go to these kind of places, but I still need to read this. And then we have The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, which is a really good sci-fi. I have read it and would recommend it. And then this is again another kind of dystopia, and this is Callacane by Karen Boy, and this is quite similar to 1984. So again, I would recommend this if you're into the dystopia genre. And then another massive tome, Les Miserables by Victor Hugo, which I really need to read, but it's so long, it's so intimidating. So yeah, again, this was recommended as a really good translation, but also the words, the text is so small. So yeah, I maybe need to start reading that and just start chipping away at it. And then we have another Clothbound, which should be with the others. So this is Dracula by Bram Stoker. So again, this is one of my favourite classics, so I want to have multiple editions. So yeah, that is the majority of the classics. I think there are some dotted around, but I would love to read more classics. As I said, I haven't really got the groundings in literature as I haven't studied it, but I am now a lot more interested in classics. I wasn't when I was younger, but I would like to read a lot more. So then this next shelf, we have a few, I think there's a few more classics on this one, but this one mainly contains my Alice Hoffman collection. So I have this little bee pot here. I have a little golem, which I bought in Prague, and then a gargoyle, which I'm not sure where that came from. And I have a little Wonder Woman mini pop vinyl keyring. We have a pop vinyl of Rafael Nadal. He is my favourite tennis player. I love him so much, and I'm really sad that he's retired. And then we have Veronica Mars from the TV show. And then I do have this little TBR jar here, which I have filled with books, but it was honestly quite a long time ago, so I can't remember what's in there, and I've probably read a lot of these, so at some point I will redo a TBR jar. So I think I do pretty much own every novel that Alice Hoffman wrote. So Practical Magic is one of my favourite series of all time, so I wanted to read her whole backlist, and she has so many books. So I don't think they're in order, but we have At Risk, we have White Horses, then we have Property of, which was her first ever novel, and I have read that one. I didn't think it was good as Practical Magic, but for her first novel, it is so good. And you can already see her kind of magical realism and her style coming through in this. And then we have, they're a little bit tightly packed, but we have The Dove Keepers, which is such a beautiful novel. It's kind of historical fiction. And yeah, I would really recommend this as one of her books to read. Then The River King, which I haven't read. So actually I've not read most of these. So The World That We Knew, Blackbird House, The Story Sisters, which I've read and loved, Local Girls, The Probable Future, then a beautiful edition of Practical Magic, Second Nature, Illumination Night, The Drowning Season. This one I've read and did really enjoy this one. You can see I've tabbed this one, doesn't quite fit in the shelf. Fortune's Daughter, again I read this one and really enjoyed it. Blue Diary, Turtle Moon, The Red Garden, Here on Earth, Angel Landing, When We Flew Away, which is about Anne Frank before she wrote her diary. I haven't read this one. I'm really excited to read this one. I think this is her latest one. Then The Marriage of Opposites, The Third Angel, and Faithful. So I did start doing a kind of Alice Hoffman reading project. I wanted to read all of her backlist in order. So I think I read about 5 or 6, but then put it on hold for other things. So I'd love to return to that and potentially maybe start it again. Just remind myself of what happened in the books that I've read. And this shelf was kind of meant to be some of my favourite authors. So we always have Margaret Atwood here. So we have Cat's Eye, Hag-Seed, and Oryx and Crake. And I would also love to do a Margaret Atwood reading project. I want to read all of her backlist as well. Then we've got another couple of kind of modern classics. So we have To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin, The Big Sleep by Raymond Chandler. I don't even think I'm going to ever read this one. I got it free with a newspaper, but I actually do quite like this edition. Then we have The Hours by Michael Cunningham, and this was a really interesting book. So I don't know a lot about Virginia Woolf, but this book was kind of based on Virginia Woolf's books and also her life. And there's 3 different actresses who play her in the film, so it was turned into a film. And it has Meryl Streep, Julianne Moore and Nicole Kidman in it, and I would highly recommend the film. But yeah, I did really enjoy this book, so I do need to read that again at some point. Then we have Lady Chatterley's Lover by D.H. Lawrence. And then I have the Lord of the Rings trilogy. So we have The Fellowship of the Ring, and these are beautiful sprayed edge paperback editions. So I have read part 1, but I still need to read The Two Towers and The Return of the King. So yeah, I think I will probably reread that again. I'll read part 1 again and just read it all in one go. Then we've got another classic here. So this is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. This is Bella and Edward's favourite book. So I do quite like this edition, but yeah, it is a bit weird to have that sticker on. And then we have The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, and this is Collins Classic Edition. I got this free with the paper as well. So I'm actually wondering if I might just get a different edition of this one. And then we have 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and this is meant to be a really beautiful magical realism book. So I do enjoy magical realism, and this has been recommended on BookTube quite a lot, and I am eager to get to this one. So let's move down to the next one. Again, this is a real mishmash of books, and I can see books that should have actually been on other shelves, but I will at some point do that reorganisation and hopefully have things in better places. So on the shelf we do have another little box of crystals, and then I've got these Alice in Wonderland pop vinyls from the Disney movies. And then I have this little pin with a panda reading which says I love books, which my dad got me for Christmas a couple of years ago. Then I have this little Paddington postcard which my 2-year-old niece got me. And then I have Edward Scissorhands pop vinyl. So in terms of books, I think this was supposed to be kind of translated fiction, but yeah, I can also see some classics on here as well. So starting here, we have The Readers of Broken Wheel recommend by Karenina Bivald, and this is a translation from the Swedish, which at the time of reading I didn't realise, but this is a really beautiful book about a woman who travels to a place from Sweden to America to Broken Wheel and starts working in a bookshop, and yeah, it is a really beautiful book. And then we have Flights by Olga Tokarczuk, and I'm not very good at pronouncing Polish names, so I hope I did that one okay. So this was winner of the Booker International Prize, and I really enjoyed this. And I really like these editions. So these are the Fitzcarraldo editions, and they do a lot of the translated books, and I think the translated ones are in blue, and then there's also white covers as well. So yeah, I'd like to pick up more of these editions. And yeah, that was translated from the Polish. And then we have Convenience Store Women by Sarah Kimurata, and this was really good. It's really short and I read it very quickly and really enjoyed it, and she has some other books out as well that I need to read. Then we have more of my translated cat fiction. So we have Invisible Kitties by Yu Yo-Yo, and this was translated from Chinese by Jeremy Tiang, and I tabbed this. This was a very strange book. I can't even remember exactly what happened, but it was about cats kind of transforming into different things, and there's illustrations throughout. And yeah, it was just really, really odd and out of the ordinary. Then we have the Travelling Cat Chronicles by Hiro Arakawa, and that had me in tears towards the end. We have A Cat, a Man and Two Women by Junichiro Tanizaki. We've got The Guest Cat by Takashi Hiraride. If Cats Disappeared from the World by Junki Kawamura. And then another one by Hiro Arakawa, and this is The Goodbye Cat, and I need to psych myself up to read this because I think based on the title it's going to be very sad. And then we have a couple of books by Han Kang, so translated from the Korean, and this is The White Book, which was really beautiful, and they're kind of like short little vignettes and about things that are white, so snowflakes, perpetual snow, sleet, and yeah, they're just very short little vignettes, and I think there was some images as well. And yeah, it was just really beautiful, that book. And then we have Human Acts by Han Kang. Then we have a stray Alice Hoffman book that should be up on the other shelf, but this is The Ice Queen, which I really enjoyed. Then we have a modern classic, which is The Ice Palace by Taye Vesas, and this was beautiful. Then Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. And then one of my favourite thriller crime series. This is probably the only thriller crime series that I have loved, and this is translated from the Swedish, and this is The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larsson. And yeah, I love this series. I love Lisbeth Salander. She's one of my favourite fictional characters, and yeah, I love the films, and I have a couple of different editions. These are the original paperbacks with the film covers for the original Swedish film. And then The Girl Who Played with Fire. And The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest. And I do really need to read these books again. Then we have Seven Cats I Have Loved by Anat Levitt, and this is again a translated fiction, but this is translated from the Hebrew, and this was a beautiful novel about a woman who talks about 7 cats that she's had in her life that she's loved. And yeah, it was also quite sad. Then we have The Martian by Andy Weir. And then this is a proof, I think, which was out in January, so I should have read this by now. I'm not sure, is that what the title is? Yeah, Best Offer Wins by Marissa Cashino, and I probably won't actually read that one, so I may just part with that. I did get it as a freebie at the Women's Prize for Fiction. Then we have Chocolat by Joanne Harris. So this is a new cover of this book, and I don't think I really like this cover. But yeah, I am interested to read this because I haven't read it yet. Then Kafka on the Shore by Haruki Murakami. And then That's What Happened to War and Peace. It came down on the shelf. So this is the Oxford World Classics, which is the definitive translation. So I'm really excited to read that. But yeah, I'm intimidated by, oh gosh, it's so tiny. But yeah, I really like to read that, and I think I might just try and do it in the next couple of years. Just go for it. And then this is another Women's Prize for Fiction book, and this is All Fours by Miranda July. And I did read it. It was pretty good, but I'm not sure if I really want to read it again, so that might be an unhaul. Then Open Water by Caleb Azuma Nelson, and this was just beautiful. So this is actually written in the second person, which I know does annoy quite a lot of people, but this was absolutely beautiful. So Caleb is a wonderful writer, and he has another book as well that I need to read. But yeah, I definitely recommend this one. And then we've got another series by Charlene Harris. So this is, I think it's called the Harper Connolly series, and this is Grave Sight, Grave Surprise, and Grave Secret. And yeah, it's really annoying that that one doesn't match. But yeah, this is a really good book series as well. I do really like Charlene Harris's writing. And then we have the start of my Taylor Jenkins Reid collection. So these are all the paperbacks. So Forever Interrupted, which I need to read after I do. Again, I need to read, these are on my 26 to read in 2026. Then The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which is one of my favourite novels. This is just beautiful. One True Loves, and Maybe in Another Life. So Taylor Jenkins Reid is just such a brilliant writer. Her earlier work was not as good as the books she has out now, but yeah, she's still a really, really good writer, even in her earlier stuff. And there will be some more Taylor Jenkins Reid's books further down the shelves as hardbacks. It does kind of annoy me that authors are separated, but as I said, I need to just do a full reorganisation. So on this shelf, I actually have quite a lot of my Asian inspired fiction, and I just think some of these are such beautiful books. So I also have this little plaque here with a girl with the moon. Then I have this bow replica from Illumi Crate. Then this is my kind of monthly calendar. And then this is another Dala horse. So up first is one of my favourite books of all time, and this is Daughter of the Moon Goddess. I don't want to hurt it as I get it out, so just be careful, they're so tightly packed. So yeah, this is Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Celine Tan, and this is just beautiful. So tabbed, this is such a stunning edition as well. This is FairyLoot. And then we have the second book, which is Heart of the Sun Warrior, which wasn't as good as the first one, but still a really great read. And then there's that was also the beautiful FairyLoot edition. And then there's also a collection of short stories, which is Tales of the Celestial Kingdom, and that story set in both of those books, and a stunning edition. And I feel like Celine Tan has got some of the most beautiful editions. So this one is Immortal, which is her latest release. This is I believe this is the FairyLoot edition. And then I also have a second copy of this, which is the Waterstones special edition. Or maybe that one. No, that one is the Waterstones special edition. And I know I have 2 copies of it, but I could not decide between these two. They are just beautiful. So it's a good thing I actually did enjoy the book, so I will keep both of those. And then I've got a large collection of Elizabeth Lim books. So I love how these are in like ombre, like changing from the light to dark or dark to light. One of these is her most recent release. But yeah, I love how they've done that. So we have 6 Crimson Cranes. And these aren't sprayed edge editions. I've heavily tabbed this one. But I just think they are really beautiful. Then The Dragon's Promise, which I need to read. So yeah, the only Elizabeth Lim book I've read is 6 Crimson Cranes, but I did love that so much, so I want to read the rest of her books. So The Dragon's Promise, and then Her Radiant Curse, which is a sprayed edge edition. Then A Forgery of Fate, which is blue sprayed. And then these are a couple of FairyLoot editions. So we have Spin the Dawn and Unravel the Dusk. And then one of my 5-star reads from 2015, The Scorpion and the Night Blossom by Amelie Wen Chow. And she is releasing the sequel to this year, so I'm excited to pick that one up. And I will probably get the matching FairyLoot edition. Then again, 2 copies of another book. So this is Watermoon by Samantha Soto Yambao, and this is the Waterstones edition. And I just really love the simplicity of this one. And then I also did get the Illumicrate one in a box, which is stunning. It's just a shame I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I was going to, but I think I will give it another go and read it again. Then we have The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea by Axie O. This is a beautiful edition, again tabbed. And then I think these are back to front. So we have The Scarlet Alchemist by Kaylee Lee Baker, and then the sequel to that, The Blood Orchid. And these are beautiful. And I didn't know I was going to enjoy these so much, but after I read Bat Eater by this author, I decided to read her other books and I did really enjoy it. So I do love her writing style, but I do slightly prefer her horror novel over these ones. Then Shanghai Immortal by Ayao Chow. And this is meant to be getting a sequel. Well, I'm not sure if the sequel's out, but FairyLoot have been really slow at sending out the special edition. So I've kind of forgotten what happened in this now. But this had a half vampire character, a half magical fox character, and it was really interesting. So I'm going to have to probably read a summary before I read the second book, if it ever arrives. Then To Gaze Upon Wicked Gods by Molly X. Chang. This is another beautiful edition. And then The Night Ends With Fire by KX Song, which is a Mulan retelling, and I really enjoyed this, and I do have the sequel upstairs on my special edition bookshelf, so I need to read that while this is quite fresh. And then Catfish Rolling by Clara Kumagai, and this is a beautiful edition, and I'm really interested to read this as well. I do really love Asian inspired fantasy books, so I would like to kind of read and complete all of these books on this shelf. And then moving down to the next shelf, this is kind of my favourite author section. So we have some of my favourite author books down here, and also quite a bit of shelf clutter. So we have the little Stitch keyring. I have this rose, which I got from Phantom of the Opera when I went to see it in the West End. This is meant to be like a tea jar to keep your tea bags in, but I'm using it as kind of a TBR jar. Well, it's empty, so I need to use it. Then a Statue of Liberty figurine, which I got when I went to New York. And then just this little tin set. So in this part of the shelf, we have my Taylor Jenkins Reid hardbacks. And yeah, these are some of my favourite books. I think these have all been given 5 stars by me. So Atmosphere, Daisy Jones and the Six, Malibu Rising, Carrie Soto is back, and then 4 different editions of The Seven Husbands of Evelyn and Hugo. So these books are all in the same kind of universe, and characters kind of pop up in the different books, which I really enjoyed. And yeah, these are some really beautiful editions. So we have this latest edition, and I love the green. This is, I think, the original hardback edition. And then this was a special Waterstones edition. And then this is a FairyLoot slipcase edition, which I'll see if I can get out for you. Which is not as pretty as I thought, but yeah, I do really love this book, so I wanted to have all of the different editions I could find of it. But yeah, Atmosphere is the only book that is now not part of this kind of universe. It was a completely new one. So yeah, I think she's probably done with that universe now. But yeah, I just love her writing so much. And then we have one book by Alice Hoffman, which is The Story Sisters, which I love. And this was an edition I picked up at the Strand bookshop in New York when I went there. And then we have a selection of Margaret Atwood books. So we have the Handmaid's Tale Independence Exclusive Anniversary Edition, which I was gifted for Christmas. We have The Heart Goes Last, which I really enjoyed. We have Paper Boat, which is a really big collection of most of her poems from 1961 to 2023. And I did start reading this last year, but I have about half left, so I will probably finish that very soon. And then we have 2 copies of her memoir. So we have the signed copy. Yeah. And then we also have the Waterstones exclusive edition, which I think I did explain in one of my videos that I wanted to have this special edition, which I thought would be signed, but it wasn't. And yeah, I thought I had pre-ordered this edition, but it turns out there were 2 different editions. Unfortunately, that was not signed, and it's really annoying because I wouldn't keep 2 otherwise. But I think I got this one stamped when I went to the event. But yeah, she doesn't sign a lot of books, so I thought that I would keep this signed one as well. Then we have Old Babes in the Wood, which is like short stories. And then Burning Questions. This is another signed copy. And I went to an event that she did. Sadly, you don't get to meet her because she doesn't really do meet and greet. But yeah, there it's signed. I did go to this event and listen to her talk about this. So this is just kind of essays and occasional pieces, various thoughts she's had on various topics. And then, oh, there's one more Margaret Atwood book there. This is Freedom. This is a short little book. I think she's writing about freedom and about her dystopias and about the power of words. And this is my Silvia Moreno-Garcia section of the bookshelf. And I love all of her books. I haven't read them all, but everything I've read I've really enjoyed. And she's so good at writing in various different genres. And she has some beautiful special editions as well. So first we have The Bewitching, which I was supposed to read last year and I didn't get around to it. So I'm hoping to read that soon this year. And that's the Waterstones edition. We have Silver Nitrate, which again I haven't read. This is the Illumicrate edition. Mexican Gothic, which I really enjoyed. I love this book. Certain Dark Things, which I think for me is one of the best alternative takes on the vampire genre. I loved this book so much. It was an older one of her books which she re-released in hardback, and yeah, it is one of my favourite books and I enjoyed every minute of it, and I kind of just flew right through it. We have the beautiful ones. Velvet Was the Night, The Daughter of Dr. Moreau, Untamed Shore, and then Gods of Jade and Shadow, which is, I think, a Mexican kind of folklore book, which I do really need to prioritise. For a long time, I couldn't find it in hardback. I wanted to match my whole set, so I didn't get it. And then I did find it on eBay, so I was really excited about that. So yeah, I do need to read that soon. But I love her writing, and I love all of the different genres that she crosses. So I think the light is probably faded quite a little bit, so it's going to be a bit dark down here, especially with the dark books. Strangely, this is my Olivie Blake shelf, even though I'm not sure if I really like Olivie Blake's writing. So yeah, it kind of feels like a little bit of a waste of a shelf, considering there's all these Olivie Blake books. But yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't made up my mind on her yet. So in terms of pop vinyls, we have all of my Wednesday ones on here, and the Wednesday and Enid one. So yeah, I am quite obsessed with Wednesday and the Addams Family. So first we have a couple of horrors which didn't make it onto the horror shelf, but we have The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monica Kim. This was an Evernight book, and I heavily tabbed this, and I really enjoyed this one. And then Bat Eater by Kylie Lee Baker, one of the best books I read last year, and I love this edition. Then we have The Gifts by Liz Hyder, and this one sounds so interesting, and it's been on so many TBRs and I just haven't managed to finish it. So I would like to correct that very soon. Then we have several editions of Babel by R.F.Kuang, and to be honest, I'm not sure if I really love this book enough to have 4 special editions of it. I did enjoy it, and I appreciate what R.F.Kuang was trying to do about racism and colonial past, and also I loved how she tied that together with translation, which is one of my really big interests. But yeah, I'm not sure if I loved it enough to keep all of these copies. So it was really mainly due to book boxes having them in their subscriptions all at the same time. So we have the Lot Library edition, which is very pretty with beautiful sprayed edges. Then we have, is this the FairyLoot edition? So I do quite like the silver cover, and yeah, beautiful edges. Then have this standard Waterstones edition, which I have tabbed quite a lot. I do like the fact that she did write a lot of kind of footnotes to explain things, and I think that made it very detailed, but also made it read a little bit like a textbook. But yeah, I tabbed that one. If I'm going to get rid of a copy, it will probably be this one. And then we have the stunning Illumicrate edition, which I think is my favourite edition, with those sprayed edges. And I do love a slipcase, so this one's very pretty. But I think Lot Library are actually going to do yet another copy of it. Like, I'm not sure how many people need to keep doing copies of Babel. Yeah, I understand that it's a very popular book, but at the same time, there's so many copies around. So then we have the Olivie Blake section. So it is really taking up the majority of this shelf. So we have Alone With You in the Ether, which, yeah, again, I didn't really gel with. I love this edition though. That's the problem. They're such beautiful books. Then we have the Illumicrate edition of Masters of Death, and One for My Enemy. So One for My Enemy is one of the books that I haven't read yet. So I do need to read it, and then I will make up my final decision of what I'm going to do with these books. So then we have, I think this is the Waterstones edition of One for My Enemy. So yeah, it was really my fault for pre-ordering so many of the editions, because I could have saved myself the pain of not actually enjoying them. And then the FairyLoot edition of One for My Enemy, which is very pretty. So I'm kind of pinning all my hopes on this book. Then we have the Atlas 6 series, which is the Waterstones series. The Atlas Paradox. So I've read books 1 and 2. Book 1 was really enjoyable actually. It's probably my favourite of Olivie Blake's books. But then it kind of went downhill, and then I do have to read the Atlas Complex as well, which is the conclusion to the series. So yeah, it is really a shame, because I just really desperately want to like her books, but there is some kind of disconnect there. Then we have Gifted and Talented, and this is the FairyLoot edition with those sprayed edges. And then we have Starling House by Alex E. Harrow. So this was really enjoyable, and I love this Illumicrate edition with that cover. Then another Olivie Blake, and this is January's, which is a series of short stories, and this is a Waterstone special edition. So I think maybe I could possibly like this a little bit more, but yeah, I have to read that one as well, and then we'll see. We have Moonstone by Laura Purcell, Belladonna by Adeline Grace, which is again a series that I haven't completed. I've only read book 1, and I do have the rest of the series. One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig, and I need to read the sequel to this one. Then another copy of Gifted and Talented by Olivie Blake, and this is the Waterstones edition. Then The Cloisters by Katie Hayes, which I have tried to read for so many years. I need to prioritise it. And then Alchemized by Sen-Lin Yu, and I feel I did get a little bit swept away by the hype on this one, because it sounded like a very popular book. So this is the Waterstones edition, which did sell out. But yeah, I'm not a fan of the fandom which this book used as kind of the source. It was fan fiction for the fandom, and yeah, I've never really been interested in it, so I'm not sure if I am going to enjoy this. But yeah, I actually have 2 copies of this as well, so it is also a massive book. So I need to read that one and decide if I actually do enjoy it. So on this shelf, again, there's quite a lot of mismatch of books. I've got quite a bit of literary fiction and some classic box sets here. So I do have this monkey statue here. It does say Darwin on the side, so I've called him Darwin. But yeah, I thought that was really cool in reading a book. And then I'll start with this kind of bit hanging off the front here. So yeah, again, another Olivie Blake book. So this is Masters of Death, and this is the FairyLoot edition, I think. And then a couple more Folio Society editions, which are kind of cloth bound. So we have Cider with Rosie by Laurie Lee, and I do really like these editions. They're nice, cloth bound, and they do have illustrations in as well. And then we have A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man by James Joyce. I haven't read these. And then we do have a beautiful copy of Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, which I've read and is one of my favourite classics. So yeah, we have this kind of imagery throughout. And then I have a literary fiction, so this is My Name is Amelia Del Valle by Elizabeth Allende, and yeah, I haven't read this author before, so I need to read that. Then we have The Dance Tree by Kieran Millward Hargrave, a beautiful sprayed edge edition, and yeah, I really enjoyed this book. It's a great literary fiction. Then another Alice Hoffman book. This is Skylight Confessions, and yeah, this is on the wrong shelf. It didn't fit with the rest. And then these are my Penguin cloth bound classic box set. So this is the Bronte sisters. so I will carefully get these out. So we have Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, Villette by Charlotte Bronte, The Tenant of Wildfire Hall by Anne Bronte, and Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. So I've read Jane Eyre and Wuthering Heights, but not the other two. But yeah, they are packaged in this beautiful, beautiful hardback box. And then I have another Penguin Clothbound classic collection, and this is the Thomas Hardy collection. So I read Far from the Madding Crowd by this author and really loved it, and picked up this box set as a gift. But this is a beautiful one. It's got bees on the covers. So in this collection we have Jude the Obscure, I have Tess of the D'Urbervilles, The Mayor of Casterbridge, and then Far from the Madding Crowd with the bees on the cover as well. And yeah, I really need to read the rest of his books. I did really enjoy Far from the Madding Crowd and would love to read this again and then read the rest. But yeah, classics don't end up being prioritised by me. I tend to prioritise the easy fantasy reads. And yeah, there's a lot of classics that I do need to read, so hopefully I can prioritise them. And then we have quite a few literary fiction books stuffed in here. So Women of Light by Callie Fiado-Anstein. You may remember on my first bookcase I have a short story collection by this author, so this is a novel which I'm looking forward to reading. Then we have Cursed Bread by Sophie Mackintosh. So Sophie Mackintosh, author of The Water Cure, which I really loved, but this one I didn't enjoy so much. It was less dystopic, I think. I think that's why I didn't enjoy it as much as her other two books. But this was, I think, longlisted for the Women's Prize for Fiction. And then Wandering Souls by Cecile Pinn. This again is associated with the Women's Prize for Fiction. Then another book by Claire Fuller, and this is Unsettled Ground. And Maps of Our Spectacular Bodies by Maddie Mortimer. And then we have more of the Dragon Tattoo series. So I have this beautiful hardback box set, which was an absolute bargain. I picked this up from Waterstones in a sale and it was £5, which is crazy. And the bookseller was very sceptical at the price and had to double check it, but yeah, it was right, it was £5, and I think this is meant to be at least £100, so yeah, I had a very good find there. That was several years ago, but yeah, this has just got the original trilogy. So these are beautifully cloth bound, and we have The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, The Girl Who Played with Fire, and The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest. And then there's also a short afterward book which has a little bit more detail about the series. So yeah, as I said earlier, I do really need to reread this series. I do also somewhere have it in its original Swedish, so I'd love to read it as part of my Swedish study. And then we have the next trilogy, which was written by a different author. So sadly Stieg Larsson died and he had a lot more planned for the Millennium series, but another author took over, David Lagerkrantz, and there was a little bit of controversy from his family about this. But yeah, I love the character of Elizabeth Salander, so I understand they're not the same, and I do much prefer Stieg Larsson's trilogy, but these are a good addition. I'm not sure if these are in the right order, actually. So we have The Girl Who Takes an Eye for an Eye, The Girl in the Spider's Web, which I think was turned into an English film, and then The Girl Who Lived Twice, which again, I think that was also turned into a film. I believe it was with Claire Foy as Elizabeth Sander. And then another author has taken over, so Karen Smirnoff is the first female author of this series, and she wrote The Girl in the Eagle's Talons, which I really need to read. And she's also released a second book, so yeah, I'm a little bit behind now. Then we have a book called Run Rose Run by Dolly Parton and James Patterson. So I actually also have this on audiobook, and Dolly Parton is singing some songs on there as well, I believe. Then I've got a couple of thrillers, so The Sanatorium by Sarah Pearce, and I'm not normally into thrillers, but this again is a book that I really enjoyed in the thriller genre. And then I do have, I'm not sure if it's a direct sequel, but it's set in the same, with the same characters. So we have The Retreat, which I need to read. Then some more Scandi thriller. This is The Chestnut Man by Soren Sverdrup, and he is one of the writers of The Killing, which I need to watch. But yeah, this was a really good Scandi noir crime thriller, and yeah, I really enjoyed this. So this is translated from the Danish, but I think it was also turned into a TV series as well, which I need to watch. And then some more of the literary fiction. So we have Weather by Jenny Offal. Got Luster by Raven Lilani. Then Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney. So I do have more Sally Rooney books, but I think they are on a different bookshelf. That's the only hardback I have of her. More literary fiction, including some Women's Prize for Fiction books. So first we have How to Kill Your Family by Bella McKee. And yeah, I need to read this. I haven't read that yet. And then Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingslover, which again I have not read, but this is a beautiful edition. I'm not sure whether I should try and attempt David Copperfield before I read this, because this is a modern reimagining of David Copperfield, so I'm not sure whether to read that first and then read this. This one's Sky Day by Leonie Ross, a beautiful edition. Again, this is a Women's Prize book and I haven't read it. Then Transcendent Kingdom by Yael Gayesi, which I read and did enjoy. And then Memphis by Tara M. Stringfellow. I need to read this. The Whispering Muse by Laura Purcell, again unread. The Dutch House by Anne Patchett. The Sentence by Louise Erdrich, which I read and did enjoy. And it's kind of quite meta, so it's talking about a woman in a bookshop, but the bookshop is actually the bookshop which the author owns. So yeah, I thought that was an interesting touch. And then another couple of books that I haven't read. So we have Nightcrawling by Layla Motley, which was a debut, and this is a Waterstones exclusive. So I think this author was mentored by Ruth Hideki, who won the Women's Prize for Fiction a couple of years ago. And then Burnham Wood by Enola Catton, which I love this sprayed edge edition, and I'm excited to read this as well. But again, I don't really tend to prioritise literary fiction as much, so I think that's something I'm really going to have to do to try and clear this backlog of books that are unread. But I'm also not sure, some of these maybe, if I'm not interested in them, I might unhaul them. But I would at least like to try to read them before I do that. So that's a wrap on my bookshelf tour. I hope you have enjoyed this deep dive into my bookshelves. And do catch up on the other parts that you may have missed. So if you are looking for some nostalgia books, some YA dystopia, some fantasy, some FairyLoot and Folio Society special editions, then do check out part 1 of the bookshelf tour. If you're looking for some popular fantasy series, some epic fantasy and some dragon fantasy, also more dystopia and mythology and folklore, then check out part 2 of the bookshelf tour. And then if you're looking for some vampire fantasy, some witchy fantasy, some horror and some more of my translated fiction, then do check out part 3 of the bookshelf tour. Just let you in on a little secret, this is not all of the books that I own. So I have books in other rooms, so in my study upstairs, which is an absolute mess, so I won't be able to show you those at the moment, but that contains some non-fiction and also some more of my contemporary and literary fiction. So as soon as I have done a good clear out in there, I will show you those books as well. And then in my bedroom, I do have more special editions, and these are mainly books that have come in book subscription boxes. And I will do a tour of that very soon. Please do give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and do subscribe to my channel for more of my content. Please also drop me a comment and let me know what you thought of the tour and if any of these books stood out to you or if any are on your TBR. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.